Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Tonight on America Decides. On the defensive, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth facing some calls in some quarters to resign. He, of course, remains defiant and blames former staffers we should note he brought into the senior Pentagon leadership for leaking details about a signal chat where he reportedly discussed sensitive military plans with his wife, his brother, and his personal attorney. What we know about this second group chat and the White House processing of it all. Economic blow. The International Monetary Fund slashes the forecast for future U.S. economic growth and warns President Trump's tariff policies might generate more global economic uncertainty. Demanding release, the Justice Department continues to stonewall a judge's order to explain what the Trump administration has done and plans to do, if anything, to free Kilmar Abrego Garcia from El Salvador. I want to start tonight with Nancy Cordes at the White House. Nancy, how would, from your reporting there at the White House, you assess the job security of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth?
Major, every single White House official we talk to says that Hegseth is safe not only in the short term but in the long term. They insist that he is doing a great job, that President Trump believes he's doing a great job. President Trump himself said that yesterday, and we've seen Hegseth out there today making the case for himself in a cable news interview. This is a White House, as you well know, that tends to rally around its own, and in this case, Pete Hegseth, despite the many controversies that he's been involved in, is one of their own. There is an ongoing question about these men who served him in very high-ranking capacities who have now been let go. He suggested that this investigation into whether they leaked information about him might be referred to the Justice Department, but then when the White House press secretary was asked about that today, she said she claimed not to know anything about that. So the fate of these three top aides, some who, as you pointed out, have been with Hegseth, have known him for years, is still very up in the air.
And is there any sense at the White House, Nancy, that this discussion of military plans, highly sensitive, whether they're classified or not, is a separate matter? Is conduct consistent with an effective defense secretary, or this turmoil within the senior ranks of the Pentagon is something they find consistent with a successful and effective defense secretary?
Major, anytime we've asked about that, they turn the question around on its head, and they say what they're really worried about is that these old stories are being peddled by people who have an axe to grind, who are not on board with Hegseth's plans to overhaul the military and simply want to hurt him. President Trump saying, for example, that he got rid of a lot of bad people, Hegseth that is, and that's why he has made these enemies. They simply are not engaging, Major, on the question of whether it was appropriate for Hegseth to share this sensitive information in not one, but now we know 2 signal chats.
And Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, told investors behind closed doors today that he sees the tariff situation with China as, quote, unsustainable. What might that mean?
That was a recognition that many on Wall Street have come to a while ago, which is that the fact that the U.S. has imposed 145% tariffs on many Chinese goods and that China has imposed 125% tariffs on U.S. goods is simply devastating for hundreds, if not thousands, of U.S. small and medium-sized businesses, and that the pain is only going to grow the longer this drags on. And so he is acknowledging the reality, which is that the current situation is unsustainable and that there has to be a deal sooner rather than later. Now, the rest of the White House has not acknowledged that, so it was notable that he did say that publicly. But as far as we know, there are still no talks with Chinese officials scheduled. The White House press secretary told us today that she had just spoken with the president and that he wanted us to know that the stage is being set for a negotiation with China, but she would not elaborate on what exactly that means and what concrete steps are taking place now to ensure that these talks start soon.
From the North Lawn of the White House, Nancy Cordes, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Major.